Now, as I said from the very first session that we had, whenever we meet, I'm going to spend some time looking at some issues which pertain to us as black people. Now, you would recall that in the last session, I made mention of the fact that President Trump has taken it upon himself to launch some very vicious attacks against some women of color, Democratic congressmen who are affectionately known as the Squad. And these four women, all women of color, they're all US citizens, as I told you the last time. However, President Trump has been suggesting that rather than being critical of America, that these women should go back to where they came from and fix their countries and then come back and talk about what should be happening in the US. Now, I made mention to you that of these four women, three of them were born in the US, which creates a rather crazy situation for Brother Trump because he's asking people who are born in the US to go back to the US and fix their country, which is exactly what the four congresswomen are doing. And the one who was born outside of the US, Ilhan Omar, she was born in Somalia, but she came to the US at the tender age of 10, and she also now is an American citizen. So one wonders what President Trump is really trying to suggest that these four women do. Now, President Trump continued in fine form this week. He took on another black person, and it seems as though this is something that President Trump enjoys. He enjoys getting into fights with black people. Yet he is always saying that he is the least racist person on the face of the earth. But when you look at his record, you will see that President Trump does go after a lot of black people. And this week, the black person he went after was the House Oversight Chairman, Elijah Cummings. Cummings has been taking on President Trump in recent times. Cummings is the representative for Baltimore. And this week, President Trump made the statement that Baltimore is a disgusting rat and rodent infested mess. That is how he described the constituency of Mr. Elijah Cummings. And there were many people who were born in Baltimore, which predominantly is a black area. Many people who were born there were very incensed about the comments that President Trump made. There was one CNN reporter this week who literally broke down on camera, because it was very emotional having to deal with that level of violence, that kind of vicious attack against people of color in the US. Now, also this week, another American president, this time a dead ball, was in the news, and again for a racist statement. Now, I'm going to read this statement and I'm going to ask the two of you to tell me if y'all can guess who made this statement. I'm going to give you a year that it should have. The year was 1971. The date was October 26th. This is what this American president said. And he was talking about the African delegates to the UN who seem not to have been taking a stance where the Americans were too happy. And this is what this person said. To see those monkeys from those African countries, damn, they're still uncomfortable wearing shoes. Any guess as to who made that statement?
Got to be Ronald Reagan.
It definitely is Ronald Reagan. How were you able to pick that up so good, brother?
71.
71.
But I think that sometime back I had came across an article that it said Reagan was very racist, but he was very smart in hiding his racism.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think that they recorded some recordings of him really attacking black people.
Yeah, this was a secret recording that was played, and this week it came out. Someone brought it out this week, and it is just to underscore the reality that it is only President Trump who takes issue with black people. America has a history of having presidents who were very racist. For example, Woodrow Wilson. He was a supporter of segregation. He believed that blacks and whites should be separated. Abraham Lincoln was another segregationist. A lot of people do not know that after the end of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln actually wanted to ship all Africans back to Africa. As a matter of fact, who here knows the origin of the nation of Liberia in Africa?
Yes, I think the nation of Liberia was one where they were given an option to return
Yes,
to
there were
Africa.
black
Yeah.
Americans who were given the option to go back to Africa, and that was a part of Abraham Lincoln's strategy because he said that black and white are too different, and it wouldn't be a good thing for the two races to continue to coexist. So Abraham Lincoln favored a policy of sending black Africans back to Africa, and some of the slaves did agree to go back, and that is how the nation of Liberia came into existence. Uh,
Amazingly, woman, I think the flag is near something to the Americans ones. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Another very racist American
Huh?
president, Andrew Jackson. This was the guy who was responsible for the genocide of Indians. Then they tell me that Thomas Jefferson, his slaves, had a very popular name for him, and that name was Daddy, which suggests that President Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, used to have sex with some of his slaves. So the whole idea of America having racist presidents is nothing new. Now, this week I was also looking at a book by African American writer. Her name is Carol Anderson. She's Dr. Carol Anderson. And Dr. Carol Anderson has written a book called White Rage. The thesis of the book White Rage is that whenever black people have made some kind of progress in America, whites in power have a way of creating some kind of backlash. So immediately after slavery ended in 1864, you had the Black Codes and you had Jim Crow being established in America. Jim Crow being the system of apartheid or segregation, the same thing basically. Segregation and apartheid is the very same thing, where you had in one society blacks and whites existing. Legally, they were supposed to be equal but separate. But of course, we know that that was a myth, that black people definitely were not on the same equality level as white people. Then, after they decided to integrate the schools, a lot of the schools in the South closed down, whereas a lot of private schools for white people opened up and taxpayers' money were being funneled into those schools, even as Americans, black people, were being shut out of schools in the South because the schools were being closed down deliberately by white politicians. Then, of course, you know that blacks had to fight for the ability to vote in U.S. elections. Eventually, when an amendment was passed to make sure that blacks enjoyed being able to vote, then you had the backlash coming again, where they would put a lot of black people in prison. And once you are placed in prison in the penal system in North America, voting no longer is an option. You don't vote when you're in jail, but even when you come out of jail in the US, you still do not have the right to vote. For you to be able to vote as a felon, as someone who's gone to jail in America, you have to make a case with the governor of that state. And if the governor of that state tells you, gives you permission, then you can vote. So a lot of black people who end up in the penal system in the jails in North America are unable to vote. So that's how white people come back at black people. Every time black people seem to make some kind of stride, you see white people coming back against them with some kind of law, some kind of strategy to basically remove all the advances that the black people have made. And then, of course, we know in our times we had the election of the first black president of the United States of America. And of course, in our times, we can see what the backlash of that is. What was the backlash of the President Obama era? What's the backlash that we are seeing now?
Wait,
The Trump era.
yeah.
So you had President Obama, a black man elected as president. Now you have a white man in the White House who is pushing very, very, very strongly white nationalism, what is called identity politics. And all of that is designed basically
Yeah.
to stop
No.
the deeds
You're
of
there.
what is
You're
happening
still there.
in America. So I said all that. Are we still recording?
Yeah.
As I said earlier, all of this is to indicate to us that the fight is still on. That people, we've come a far way, but we still have a good way to go. And in these seminars, what we will be encouraging people to do is rather than trusting people who historically have proven not to be for us, rather than trusting in the theology that they send to us, rather than trusting in the books that they send to us, rather than trusting in the religion that they send to us, it is time for us as black people to use our minds, use our head, go to the book and find out what the book is saying for itself. Okay,